So today I'm going to be presenting on noise-induced hearing loss in children. So noise-induced hearing threshold shifts, or NRTS, is the exposure to hazardous sounds that can damage the inner ear's hair cells, and it's attributable specifically to noise alone. So potentially hazardous sounds can make it difficult for a person to hear a conversation, and they can hear a ringing in their ears or a muffled noise after the conversation has ended. So NRTS can be a result of the exposure to acute or chronic noise, and depending on the loudness and duration of the noise, it can be temporary or permanent. So acute exposure would be such as an explosion or a gunfire, and it can produce immediate, permanent, or severe NITS. And then chronic exposure is to little less intense sounds, such as loud music, which can painlessly accumulate over a lifetime to then produce irreversible damage to the ear's inner hair cells. So NITS in children can be a progressive problem, and it's seen in actually both children and adults, as we know. And examples of environmental sounds can be from concerts, loud noise such as your headphones, toys, stereos. And historically, the effects of environmental noise on hearing have not been recognized as a public health problem among children, but they have been as adults, so that means that they have interventions, screenings, programs, educational programs that can help adults be aware of it, but the public is not aware that it can affect children as much, so they don't have these type of resources, which can negatively affect children in the long run. So then here's a little bit about the hearing loss in children, and it's been linked to recreational noise and leisure activity. And then specifically in today's society, as we know, people are consciously exposing themselves to loud music, especially for long hours at a time. And these loud music can come from concerts, your own headphones, just playing it on your own TV, things just from sources like that. And actually, an interesting source I found studied noisy toys as a possible cause of noise-induced hearing loss, and they found that these squeaky toys that children are playing with could produce sound levels of 78 to 108 dB at a distance of only 10 centimeters. And if you compare that to fireworks, which produce sound levels of 125 to 156, however, at a distance of 3 meters. So this kind of shows that these squeaky toys are being played with at a much closer distance, which at very high levels, which can then affect them and cause children to have hearing loss. So for prevalence of NITS in children, I found the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey 3 was one of the first to estimate the prevalence of NITS among children in the United States. And they found that of children between ages of 6 to 19, about 12.5% or 5.2 million are estimated to have noise-induced hearing loss in one or both of their ears. And that reviews of the literature showed that excessive noise is a major cause of hearing loss in school-age children, and that hearing impairment is increasing because children are voluntarily exposing themselves to such loud noise. Something interesting I found about noise-induced hearing loss is the gender and race of it, and the data showed that female youths have experienced a significant increase in noise-induced hearing loss, and specifically female, non-Hispanic, Black, and Mexican American youths were less likely to use hearing protection devices when exposed to loud sounds or noise at work or even outside of work. And then also something I found was that although female youths had less exposure to firearms or loud noise in the workplace as compared to male youths, nearly 1/4 of both female and male youths were exposed to steady loud noise for 5 hours a week at least, which shows that there needs to be a greater health education to kind of fight the increase in noise-inducing hearing loss among female teenagers, and also increasing exposure to loud recreational noise for all teenagers of both genders. So for prevention, many parents and children also have concerns about the levels of sound exposure from personal entertainment devices and the risks of hearing loss. So a common problem is a tendency to turn up the device volume to overcome the surrounding noise. So a tip could be that it's useful that adjustments of the device volume are made in a relatively quiet environment to a level that's comfortable, and then to avoid increasing the volume even if you're in a noisy setting. And also because children are listening for such great lengths of time, it's advisable to take a periodic 15 to 20 minute break to kind of just let your ears recover. And then another issue is that the more of like tight fitting earbuds that go into the ear canal can do more damage possibly than like the loose fitting ones or the ones that go over your ear. So then, in conclusion, I found that chronic exposure to hazardous noise such as loud music can over time produce irreversible damage to the inner ear hair cells, and that health educators, including pediatricians, otolaryngologists, audiologists, even SLPs, should encourage children and teens to avoid such loud music or at least use this hearing protection. And that it's important to create these educational strategies to increase the awareness for parents and for children to help at least maybe prevent the hearing loss due to noise in the future, or at least delay the progression for U.S. teenagers who already have some degree of it. And as I've already mentioned, just to reiterate, the findings suggest that children are being exposed to excessive amounts of hazardous levels of noise, and that children's hearing is vulnerable to these exposures, and it's not just adults that are affected by noise-induced hearing loss. And it's important to have public health interventions such as educations, trainings, testing, screenings, giving maybe protection over the ears if possible. And then here are my references.